I'm 68 years old, and when I was 19, I went to work as a carpenter. Now, of that intervening almost 50 years, probably, I don't know, 2.5 decades was spent primarily doing additions, renovations, restorations, oddball, one-off stuff, along with concrete work and steel fabrication. And here's what I wish I would have learned about being a renovation contractor much earlier. I figured it out when I had about 5 years left. And here are some of the points that would have made the startup decades much more profitable and much less stressful. Now, before I say one more word, I'm assuming that you know something about construction, that you have some skills, and that you're conscientious. I'm assuming that keeping your word is important to you. I'm assuming you know at least something about marketing yourself and, attracting clients. And I'm going to assume that you're not making as much money as you think other people make, and really, you're not making as much money as you need to make in order to support your family. Those are my baseline assumptions. Let me tell you about one of the first things you ought to start thinking a lot more about if you want to do better as an addition, remodeling, renovation contractor. The first thing is this. When you enter into a business relationship with someone to remodel the home they're living in while they're living there, you are volunteering to become part of their world. You're not just volunteering to provide a service or to upgrade their house. You are volunteering and putting yourself forward as someone who deserves to be made part of their family for a while. That finally dawned on me, that what I was providing for them was not an addition or a renovation, it was an experience that from the first day, the first visit to their site, they were forming an opinion of the experience that they were having interacting with Wadco Construction. Now, this is important for several reasons. First, because it will change the way you behave yourself. Second, it will change the way you think about the value of what you're providing. You're providing a 3-month trip to Construction Disneyland for those people. Or, some other destination that's not positive, depending on how it goes. Now, the value of the entertainment that they receive is going to be a permanent function of their family lore and culture. Because the quality of your work, and whether or not it went in a timely fashion, and whether or not you were polite, and whether or not they felt secure, and whether or not you remembered to, shut off the water after you left, after washing off your concrete tools, all those things are going to contribute to how the experience is received. None more than whether or not the money was handled in a professional way, that's a key part of the experience, and whether or not the work measured up to or exceeded their expectations. So here's a list of things you should always do and things you should never do, okay? Always start out your interaction on a formal basis. Call them Mr. and Mrs. unless they correct you. Now, you may not like that, but it automatically lets them know that you're not taking your interaction for granted. Always have a packet of change orders with you. If you've treated them with respect, and if you are ready to tell them and defend why a change is going to need a change order, they will soon recognize that it's just being businesslike. Never bring your dog to the job until you've established enough of a rapport with these people that you can ask them, look, do you mind if I bring my dog? And if you see your dog relieving himself in their yard, stop the presses until you go over and clean it up. That's why the best practice is just don't bring the dog to a remodel or a renovation. Never go home at night, or at least never leave over the weekend without cleaning the job up. And when I say clean the job up, I mean clean it up. You need to include a lot of labor in your bid, in your price for cleanup, because there are not too many aspects to being a renovation contractor that the people are going to remember more clearly than whether or not they're placed with a pigsty when you left, or whether or not they tripped on a piece of a 2x4 that was left laying in their hallway, or whether or not, fill in the blank, You left a half-empty bucket of paint in the hallway and somebody kicked it over on the weekend while you were gone. None of that. You need to keep it as clean as Disneyland. Now that's not possible every time you leave the job, but every time you leave the job, it should look presentable, even if the rest of their property does not look that great. Do not take that as a license to be sloppy. You should never allow them to climb a ladder while you're on the job with them. Don't let them do it. But you need to find a graceful way to do it. You need to have something like, ladders are the most dangerous job on the tool site, on the job site. Now I use that as an example of you need to guard them carefully and you need to guard their possessions. You should never work over carpet without protecting the carpet. Just don't do it. It's not worth the risk. You should always treat their dogs as if they were your dog. I've been on projects where the dogs were a problem. Never bark at their dog. Now, if the dog is an ongoing and a growing problem, you could have a conversation, say, I'm really worried about your dog getting hurt, or any other number of excuses that you should come up with, but don't dismiss or be rude to, or, you know what, I had a job one time where the dog was just plain mean. He was mean. He would have bitten me if I turned my back. So one particular day he came at me and he had me cornered and I bent over and I picked up a stick and I whacked him on the bridge of the nose and he took off yipping and I had poisoned the relationship with that owner. Now that says more about the owner than it does about me, but I would just tell you that if you see one of their pets as a problem, you need to address it before you sign the contract, or at least in the early part of the job to make sure it doesn't turn into something unpleasant. You should always, in the same vein, it doesn't matter how annoying their children are, and if you've identified before the job started that the children are poorly disciplined and annoying and in your space and playing with your tools and climbing your ladders, you should have passed on the job. But if you're in the job and you find out that the kids are basket cases, I don't know how to tell you to deal with that except to probably formally sit down with mom and dad and say, man, you got cute kids. I love you. They're so smart. I see they're so talented. My kids are friends with their friends, and I only hear good things about your kids, but I've got to say, I'm worried about their safety. Is there something we can do to make sure that they're not in the work area ever, or certainly while work's going on? You have to understand that the kids are having an experience too. And if you bark at the kids in this world that we live in now, especially if they're kids that have never been barked at before, you're going to be lucky to get off that job with your hide. You should always shut off the lights when you're done. It's just courtesy. Turn off the lights. You should always coil up the hose that you use to wash out your wheelbarrow. You should never wash the concrete out of your wheelbarrow onto anything except gravel that you're willing to haul off, or a piece of visqueen that you will haul off when the job's done. You should always make sure that none of your subcontractors, in fact, give this to them in writing before you start. Look, don't drive on their grass. Don't do it, ever. Give them a list of things that they shouldn't do. Your drywallers and your roofers need to know that they can't be drinking beer on the job, because the experience that the people are going to look back on is going to be, if they have any reason to be unhappy, they're going to be much more unhappy if they had to go around and pick up beer cans and cigarette butts. You, as the general contractor, need to make sure that the aspects of construction life that have the worst reputations are not part of your renovation or remodel jobs. Now here's an example of something that you don't always have to do, but you should have as part of your repertoire of experience enhancement tools. Maybe one of those magnet rakes, one of those rolling nail finders, because even if there's not one nail in the driveway, if they see you rolling that thing up and down their driveway, they're going to go, oh, there's a man with a conscience. There's a man who's as worried about my tires as he is about his own. Can you see how that elevates your stock? Now, all of this about providing an experience for these people is not just about getting away from this job with your skin intact and your retainer paid. It's about getting away from this job with these people hungry to brag on you because of how much they enjoyed your construction Disneyland experience. And if they did enjoy it, they will brag on you because it's a function of sharing your joys with the people who love you. If you have an experience where somebody exceeded your expectations, you're hungry to tell people about it, just like that trip to Cozumel or wherever you went. Now, I've never been there, but I did go on a cruise to Alaska, and I have told people over and over what an experience that was. Now, on the other hand, if that cruise would have ended with food poisoning or lost luggage or fill in the blank, I would not be pointing people to that cruise line, would I? So think carefully about the fact that the degree of satisfaction you provide as what you thought was a byproduct of the good work you're doing on their house is actually what you're selling. And the good work is the cherry on top. So, all of this is maybe obvious if you think about it for just a second. But I didn't think about it enough soon enough. This can extend to when they have house guests. They are anxious to show their house guests the progress. Stop everything. Take off your tool belt. Tell the drywallers to take a break and say, would you like for me to walk through this project with your friends? Yes, would you? Because however much they want to brag on the project, they're going to like it even better if you give them an insider tour and you can answer some technical questions, and who knows, maybe you'll be securing your next job in the neighborhood if those people happen to live in the area that you are a service provider for. So as I wind this up, the Essential Craftsman Academy, besides Shop Talk, which is a live Zoom meeting twice a month where we answer questions and give examples and show blueprints and talk about problems and all of those sorts of things, which includes projects that contractors are working on when they run into a jam or they want other ideas. I mean, I love it. I learn so much each time, and you would too if you checked it out. But inside the Essential Craftsman Academy, we have an ebook, The 9 Things You Better Know Before You Hire a General Contractor. You can also get it on Amazon. But I mean, if we understand what people should be looking for, then we're going to understand what we should be providing, right? And if we exceed their expectations, they don't care what it costs, sort of. And if you exceed their expectations, you're going to know that you earned a fair payday at the end of it in profit and overhead that is left over that still pertains to you. Just remember and never forget that when you take on a remodel job or a renovation job or an addition job on a structure where the people are continuing to live while you're doing the work, you've become part of the family, whether it's for 3 weeks or 3 months or a year and a half, you become part of their people. And if you provide the experience they're hoping that you provide, you are going to be an ongoing and highly regarded part of the family. And if you don't, the relationship will be much the same as exists after a most painful divorce. Thank you for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.